What is happening, y'all? Nick here, bringing you another Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel video, and in today's video we're going to be doing a board breaker tier list for the current format as of November 19th, 2023. So, about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, we got the new Vanquish Soul pack, which to be honest hasn't really changed the meta all that much. Vanquish Soul has kind of implemented itself into the meta, but the meta as a whole hasn't really changed. So I haven't done a meta tier list, which I will do either when we get a new ban list or going into the December Duelist Cup. However, I did get a request to do a board breaker tier list in the comments down below of one of my previous videos, and I thought it was a great idea. So here it is. Right. Before we get into the actual, the tiers and all these cards, I want to say something really quickly. I've had a really hard time deciding what should and shouldn't be on this list. When I've been scrolling through just the most popular cards on the Master Duel Meta website, I've come across so many cards and I'm like, okay, that is technically a board breaker. That could be considered a board breaker. Maybe that's a board breaker. Like when looking at a card like Dimensional Barrier, you don't instantly think of this card as a board breaker, but it can be, and it can be used as a board breaker. You don't think of a card like Skill Drain or Rivalry or Gozen Match as a board breaker, but it can be. Same thing with a card like Baron to Floor. You don't think of this as like a board breaker, or at least I don't, but it can be. So, and same with a card like Big Eye. I mean, obviously this card is definitely a board breaker. Like you play this to break someone's board. But I was just struggling to decide what should and shouldn't be on this list. So I've kind of decided to eliminate that and just make this list very compact and then turn it to the comment section down below. Like if I left something off, which I guarantee I did, just let me know what it is in the comment section and I'll respond to it as soon as I see it. Or hopefully someone else in the comments will, share their opinion as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into these tiers. We have best of the best. This is exactly what it sounds like. These are the best board breakers in the game. Everyone should probably be playing these. If you're not, it's probably because you're playing a deck like Math Mech that doesn't really play breakers at all. It just plays a bunch of hand traps. But yeah, these are phenomenal. Very strong. These are cards that you can 100% get away with, but maybe you don't need to. Meta Call is exactly what it sounds like, right? These are good in specific situations, specific matchups, but maybe not good into the meta as a whole. Good but wrong time. These are cards that either were really good or are going to be really good, but maybe aren't exactly where they should be at the current time for various reasons. But yeah, they'll have their time in the spotlight one of these days. And currently outclassed are cards that are just blatantly outclassed by something else on this tier list in the meta currently. And in order for that to change, there might need to be a ban list that bans a card on this list or hits a card on this list, right? So the first one I want to talk about is pretty much what this whole video should be centered around, and that's Triple Tactics Thrust. This card is a catalyst to all the board breakers, pretty much all the board breakers in the game, and cards that were previously not very good become like incredible because of this card. Having the ability to just search a random one of in your deck makes it so cards like Herald of the Abyss, which were previously maybe not the best options to dealing with something with like Noir, become the best option for dealing with that card because it's so searchable and it's just so versatile, right? I personally, like, this is off topic a little bit, but this is not off topic, but it's more of an opinion thing. I personally love this card. I think this makes deck building really fun. I think it makes going second way better than it previously was. I think this card actually does the job that Konami wants Max C to fill. Like, that might sound kind of crazy, but this card keeps, quote unquote, keeps going first decks in check. Doesn't always, right? Because obviously there's plenty of games that you go second, you open thrust, and you still lose. But this does such a good job of making going second manageable. Now, of course, going first is still by far the best. You still want to go first in like 9 out of 10 scenarios. But this card makes going second viable. And I love it. I think it's a wonderful design card. It's really broken. Now, like, maybe I'm crazy for saying this is a really good design because it literally searches almost anything in the game. But when we live in a world where going first is so strong and a card like Max C is justified on like people justify Max C saying it keeps going first X in check. I don't think this card's a problem. But anyways, that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section down below how wrong I am. Next up, we got Change of Heart. I think this is probably a meta call. I would say this is a meta call because it's good in certain matchups, but it's not good in others. It's also just, in my opinion, an objectively worse version of Talents. Like, you probably just don't ever pick Change of Heart over Talents. It would probably be like your fourth copy of Talents, quote unquote, but even then, it's not really. So yeah, I mean, it's solid, but it's not the best. Then we got Econ here. I think Econ is really, really good, but it's a little underrated right now, and I think that's maybe because, one, it's a quick play, so you can't search with Thrust. 1 second, water break. Maybe it's because it's a quick play and you can't search with Thrust, or because there's not too much like direct effect negate, monster effect negate. There's not really a deck that, other than Purely, I'm trying to think of a deck that really relies on their normal and special summon effects to activate. Like cards that activate on summon. Like in TCG, Econ is really good in a deck like Vanadium because so many of their monsters have effects that activate as soon as they're summoned, as soon as they hit the field. That's not too prevalent in Match Duel, at least off the top of my head that I can think of. So maybe that's part of it. But I think one day this card will be really, really good. Because it is fantastic. It's good going first. It's good going second. It's a great card. Then we got Harpy's Feather Duster. I'm going to put Harpies in the very strong category. Part of me wants to put it up here in best of the best, but you definitely do not need to main deck Harpies. Like, you do not need this card to be in your deck. It's been in almost all of my decks since Thrust has come out because it's just like a one card search. Thrust just searches whatever you want, right? And like Duster's insane. It's weirdly good in this format. Obviously, it's good against Lab. It's surprisingly good against Kashtira and Purely because a lot of times, like, what happens with a Kashtira or Purely matchup is you might have ways to beat the Noir or beat the Arise Heart, but what you don't have is the way to beat the Imperm that they have set, beat the Book of Moon they have set, beat the Econ they have set, right? Whatever. Or with Purely, you might not be able to beat the follow-up from My Friend or follow-up from the Purely Street. So Duster goes actually a long way in helping break those boards. I love this card. I think it's fantastic. I think it's super underrated, even though it's really not underrated anymore. Then we got Mind Control. I think this is just obviously like clearly a worse version of Change of Heart, so it's kind of a meta call thing. Then we got Lightning Storm. This card's really good. I think it is definitely worse than Duster, but I do think it's better than cards like Regeki and Dark Hole. So I'm going to put the Regeki and Dark Hole here. I'm also going to put Dark Hole ahead of it because Dark Hole serves purposes that Regeki doesn't, like clearing Ibli. But I think Lightning Storm is better overall because it has like the dual purpose of being able to hit some decks monsters, but all decks back row. This Lightning Storm becomes a lot better when Link decks are really popular because everything's in attack position, obviously. Currently, like, people can set their boards up to where they just have like 4 defense position monsters. Like, Lightning Storm is really a Harpy's Feather Duster against Cash because Shang's going to be in defense, Fenrir, Unicorn, they're going to be in defense, Arise Heart's going to be in defense, right? So really, you're going to just Duster their back, or you're going to like Lightning Storm their back row, not their monsters. Same thing with Purely. But it's also just like worse than Duster because you can't have any cards on the field, right? So I just think it's like an objectively worse version of Duster currently, but I do think it's better than Dark Hole and Regeki because it does still have that quote-unquote dual purpose. And I think these cards are just meta calls right now. I don't think they should be in your main deck unless like you're really trying to counter something. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I could talk more about these, but I really don't think I need to. I mean, they're just not that great right now. They're good against certain matchups, but honestly, like, Talents is probably better. This card right here is better, definitely. Herald of the Abyss, I think, is just better because you can specifically like pick and choose like what you want to deal with and what you want to address. And not that you can't do that with Regeki, but Regeki and Dark Hole don't address Noir, right? Herald is insane. Like, this card, it's literally a 1-for-1 trade against anything on your opponent's field. Like 9 out of 10 times. Yeah, they can play around it sometimes, but sometimes like you just have to take that risk. that's just how Yu-Gi-Oh goes, right? Sometimes your opponent's just gonna have like a better hand than you, and that's okay. But Herald goes such a far way in helping you break so many boards. Like, it's insane against Purely, it's insane against Cash. You scroll through like Master Duel meta decks, every deck. This card is good against every deck. Like, maybe it's not like insane against every deck, but it's solid against everything. Then we got Forbidden Chalice up next, and the only reason I left this on this is because I wanted this to be like the poster child of currently outclassed. There's almost zero reason to play this card over Infinite Impermanence. Like, I don't know why you would ever play this card over Imperm. Imperm just does what this card does, but better. Sure, you can play this card in response to something more efficiently than Imperm, but Imperm has so many dual purposes of being able to go first, being able to go second. Well, obviously, Chalice can go first or second too, so that was a bad example. What I meant to say, was you can play it in your starting five. If you're going second, you open it in your starting five, and your opponent summons a freaking Chaos Ruler, you can just negate it, right? And move on about your day. Or if they summon a Black Cat, you can just negate it. Whereas Chalice, obviously that doesn't work, right? It's only going to happen on your turn, after they've already resolved their effects. I think this card is just currently outclassed by other effect negation in the game, which is kind of unfortunate because it's a really cool card. I didn't put Lance on here. Lance is solid, but it's pretty niche. Cash doesn't really even play it. So then we got Red Reboot. This is obviously a meta call, but this is insane. Like, this card is absolutely busted. Like, this card is broken. Like, and it feels wrong to put this in meta call because every time this card resolves, it's like game over. And it's really good. Like, it's good against Lab. It's decent against Purely. It gets playable against Cash because they do play some traps. It's obviously good against a deck like Mathmech, which is it's insane against a deck like Mathmech. However, like, it's hard to justify playing this in like your main deck because there's so many times when it's just dead, right? There's so many situations like when this card just doesn't work. So it's hard to justify it in the main deck, but I've main decked it in like Iron Man's before because, going on like meta calls, like, okay, our opponents play Mathmech a lot, or our opponents like always play Lab. So you can just like hard counter people with this, and it's insane when that happens. But it's pretty niche, so sadly it's in medical. But also like not sadly, because this card's this card is stupid. Whenever this card resolves, like I've already said this, but every time this card resolves, it's just like stupid. Then we got Sphere Mode here. Sphere Mode, I think this is good, but just in the wrong time. Like, decks don't put up enough monsters consistently for this to be like really good. A lot of times, like, if you're gonna be playing like tribute cards that tribute your opponent's stuff, you're gonna be playing like Kurikara or Kaiju. Spoiler alert. I'm actually gonna go ahead and throw those up here. I'm gonna go ahead and like put them up here really quickly. You know what? We'll just talk about all these really quickly. Where's it at? Lava Golem. So, tributing your opponent's stuff. Kurikara, Kaiju, Lava Golem, Sphere Mode. I think Kurikara and Kaiju are just unbelievably powerful because it's kind of the same thing as Herald. They're just like guaranteed 1-for-1 trades against like whatever you want. Like if you're dealing with an OR, okay, just deal with it. If you're dealing with an Arise Heart, okay, deal with it. Whereas Golem and Sphere Mode are so much more reliant on your opponent than these cards are. I guess technically Kurikara is kind of reliant on your opponent, but it's so easy to force stuff out that this card is just insane. And yeah, Sphere Mode and Golem are obviously very strong, but if your opponent like is smart, they're going to play around this stuff. If they know you play it, they're going to play around it. Now, they might not know, right? Like, it might be on ladder, and you might be able to sack somebody with a Lava Golem, but the amount of times that's going to happen is so much, like, less frequently than the times you're going to win a game because you played like a Kaiju, right? We were playing in, my team was playing in an Iron Man, like the Third Eye Cup Iron Man, the other day, and we lost back-to-back games against Runic Stun because of Lava Golem. So, this card is, like, insane. Like, when it goes, it goes. However, it's fairly, we actually didn't lose back-to-back games because of it. We lost one game because of it and almost lost a second because of it. Sorry. But when it goes, it goes. But it's so matchup specific. Whereas like Kaiju and Kurikara really aren't. And Severe Mode's even more matchup dependent than Lava Gold. Then we got Underworld Goddess. I'm going to say this is very strong. It's kind of hard to justify saying this is really strong because it's definitely not like the strongest board breaker out there. But a lot of times it addresses what you need it to address in decks that like can really use it. So a deck that can body spam properly but can't directly out the Noir without non-engine, this card's really good at. But other decks it's not. So like decks that can play this, it's really good. But I don't know, it's kind of hard because not everything can play this. Whereas like almost everything else in this list like is kind of just universal. Then we got the books. I'm going to go ahead and do these two together. So Book of Moon and Book of Eclipse. Obviously they're different cards, but kind of similar. I'm going to put them in like good, but at the wrong time. These are going to just get better when the little black cat, like the little Noir, baby Noir comes out. Because people are going to be using the purely trap a lot more. And these will just get better then. When maybe if Delicious gets hit for purely, these cards will be better. But right now they're honestly not great because purely is so oppressive. And purely you're gonna like if you enter a tournament, you're gonna play like let's say you play 8 rounds, like the MCS for example, the MCS hosted by MBT. It is 8 rounds and then Top Cut. You're probably going to play 2 to 3 purelies in those 8 rounds. Maybe you win 1 or 2 coin tosses, right? So these books will be good if you win the coin tosses, sure. They'll be good if they go for the trap, sure. But 9 times out of 10, they're not going for the trap. I would say 9. I would say like 7 out of 10 times they're not going for the trap. They're just gonna like make Noir the old-fashioned way. And these are just kind of dead at that point. Like kinda. I mean, yeah, you might be able to resolve them like after they, spin a few things with Noir. But at that point, they've already got value out of it. You're probably not going to be killing them, and they're just going to have infinite follow-up. So, I don't know. These cards are really good, but they're not as good as like other stuff like Herald, in my opinion, right now. I think they will be better in the future, though. Then we got Fenrir. Fenrir's a beast. Man, this card's insane. You can literally play this in like any deck and just be happy that you made that call. Like, I've never put this card in a deck and been like, wow, Fenrir really sucked this day, like today. Like I've never entered a tournament with Fenrir and been like, wow, Fenrir was really disappointing. It's just a consistent, good going first, good going second card that helps break boards, helps interrupt your opponent. Super solid. It also pluses, so it replaces itself, which is insane. It's really good in a deck like Purely because it just replaces itself. I do think it's slightly worse. This is off topic, but the Third Eye Iron Man that I was just talking about, for those of you who don't know, it is Maxi's banned in that format. It's 5v5, but Maxi's banned, I love it because we don't have to deal with Maxi. Everything else is legal though. Maxi's banned. Fenrir I don't think is as good in Purely in that format because Droll is so much more popular, and you can't really play around Droll with Fenrir because you want to play in draw phase. But Fenrir is insane though, just in a vacuum. Evenly, I think Evenly is great. I mean, it might be better than Duster. It might be like slightly worse than Duster. It's kind of pick 'em, right? I mean, they're obviously very different cards, but Evenly is insane. Like, if you main deck a single copy of Evenly, I don't blame you. I've definitely done it since the rest came out. It's super solid. It doesn't really have any bad matchups either. Like, it's good against Purely. People don't think it's good against Purely because you can't really out the Noir with it unless your opponent's stupid. But dealing with, maybe they have another Exceed up. Maybe they have like a Noir plus a Beauty up, plus a My Friend, plus a Street, whatever. You deal with all those cards besides the Noir. And you can still go like +5 off this and then slowly kind of deal with the Noir. So it's really solid. Dark Ruler, kind of the same thing. Obviously not in the same application against Purely. It doesn't have that same application, but it's like, it's right there with Evenly as like a really, really, really good one-of that you can play to search off Thrust. And if anyone plays this card, I'm not going to be mad at you. Right, like I main deck it in some decks. I've been playing a lot more side deck events or like Iron Mans. So I've been able to build my decks for specific matchups more frequently, and that's like that makes building like around these cards like easier. But just like if you're on the ladder, like playing one Dark Ruler, one Evenly, and like three Thrust, you're good. You're definitely good. Then we got Exceed Encore here. I'm gonna put this in Medical. The reason being is because I think it's just like objectively a worse version of Herald right now. I really don't know why you'd play this over Herald. Yeah, sure, you can prevent your opponent from drawing a few cards off of Sleepy, but they get all the follow-up back, so it kind of offsets. It kind of depends on like what you're like more afraid of. Like, I guess technically, it's more scary to deal with like the blanks because they could draw into a Maxi, they could draw into Ash Blossom, Nibiru, Valor, whatever, right? And Encore kind of like deals with that problem. However, it's not searchable. It's not searchable off Thrust, right? And it does give them all the spells back anyways. And it gives them a monster back. So it's weird, but it's definitely a medical. It's, you kind of like choose, like, do you want Encore or do you want Herald? And I personally like Herald more. At least like in the current format. Then we got Imperm here. I mean, Imperm's insane. Like, Imperm's like literally insane. Like, this card, it's good going first, it's good going second, it's good in your first 5, it's good as your 6th card. It's just great. It's like, it's not better than Herald because Herald like actually deals with Noir, but it is better than Herald in some situations. So, and it's also a card that you can just like play 3 of and be happy. Right? Which you're not really going to say the same thing about Herald. Herald's like a one-of. Like, that's it. Super Poly, Super Poly's probably just here, right? It's definitely a good card. It goes sometimes, but it also really sucks against some things. Like, it's not good against Cash. Like, not really at all. It's pretty mediocre against Purely unless you're going first and have it set. I mean, it's decent, and like, if you're breaking a board with, like, obviously if you're breaking a board with Branded, you can use like you can use like one of your Despia monsters or a Fallen of Albaz or something with Super Poly to break the board more efficiently. But yeah, I don't know. It's just the wrong time for Super Poly. Then we got Pankratops here. I think Pankratops is just, it's the wrong time for it. This card is really good, but it doesn't do enough, I don't think. In certain matchups it does. Like against Cash, it definitely does. Against Cash, you're fine with this card. But against like Purely, obviously doesn't do enough. And then a lot of other situations, just it's kind of mid. The reason like obviously this is a very different card than Fenrir. And people compare Fenrir to Pankratops like a lot. But they're very different cards. But a lot of times what happens is this conversation does come down to Fenrir or Pank, right? Like which one's better. And right now, Fenrir is definitely better, mostly because it replaces itself. And Pank just simply can't do that. It is nice when Pank's able to like swing over something and still pop, but it just doesn't come up enough. And like cards like Skill Drain aren't popular enough to justify this thing. And decks don't lose to a single Pankratops. Like we're not in Sprite format anymore. So, I don't know. It's difficult. It's kind of sad, too, because I love this card. Same thing with Alpha. I think this card just kind of outclassed at this point. It might come back one day, but it might not. And I would honestly kind of put my money on it not coming back, because it seems like there's just releasing more and more cards that are just objectively better than this. But it's a really cool card still. Then we got Cosmic. I'm going to go and put these together. We got Cosmic and Twin. I'm going to put Cosmic up here because I think Cosmic is still like a really good card, but I'm going to put Twin down here. The reason I'm going to say like this is currently outclassed and this is in the wrong time, it's good but the wrong time, is because why would you play Twin over Duster? The answer is really Anti-Spell Fragrance if you're trying to beat Anti-Spell. But Anti-Spell is not super popular right now. So there's really not a reason to play Twin over Duster, because Anti-Spell is not really a thing right now. If Anti-Spell becomes really popular again, maybe Duster's better. But also, Cosmic deals with that, and that's why Cosmic would probably rise before Twin would. So, like, they're both good, and Twin is definitely, like, good. These are good cards down here. Like, don't get that wrong. Don't get it twisted. Like, yeah, they might be currently outclassed by some of the things, but they're still very good cards. Then we got Talons. This card's insane. This card's literally insane. It's better than Thrust. It's 100% better than Thrust, just like in like a one-on-one scenario. But Thrust, like the versatility of Thrust, is what keeps it right there with Talons, as like 1A and 1B. But I personally think Talons is like one of the best cards in the game right now. Yeah, the thing is, it's weird because like a lot of times what I do is I go like 3 Thrust, 2 Talons. So I'm kind of like being hypocritical, saying that Talons is better. But like 9 times out of 10, that's just because if I don't open the Talons, I'm going to search it with Thrust. Right? So it's insane. Like these, I mean, you could put it like this if you want, or like this. Like they're just insane cards. Then we got Zeus. I mean, Zeus is like obviously like the best board breaker. Like this card's insane. If you're able to resolve it, it's absolutely incredible. You know, if you're playing something like Purely or something that just like, or Kashtira that can pretty much produce Zeus whenever, it's insane. Like this card's phenomenal. And there's a reason that every time, almost every time, your opponent looks at your extra deck with Unicorn, this card gets ripped. Like 9 times out of 10, they're ripping Zeus, and there's a reason for that. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say. Zeus is broken. Then we finally, last but certainly not least, we got Dark Ruler. I'm going to put this down here with Super Poly. Super Poly Econ, these books and stuff like that. This card's really good. It's been good in the past. It'll be good in the future. But right now it's kind of mid because, one, Arise Heart's pretty good against it. Obviously, you can't really resolve it. And it's not too great against Purely. But it's still a phenomenal card. And one day it'll be great again. So, yep. With that being said, that is my board breaker tier list for the current November 2023 format in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Let me know in the comment section down below what I got right, what I got wrong, and what breakers I missed / would like to talk about in the comments. So yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.